very pleased to introduce our new rock star admin assistant, and this is Catherine Maloney sitting beside me here. So yes, we are two Cathys, both spelt with a C, so if you're not sure who to speak with at the Chamber office, you're pretty safe if you just ask for Kathy. So welcome, Catherine. She's only been here a couple weeks and she's doing amazing things. So please stop by our office. We are open. We are seeing visitors more and more every day, as well as local residents who are coming in, asking us questions and directions and asking for brochures, that type of thing. So if you are a member of the Chamber of Commerce and you don't have your information, your literature down here, please stop by and see us, see the new office. Got lots of display space. We are now selling a few items. Winley Maple Syrup, who we have on the line today, I believe, has their award-winning syrup here. We've got Newt Street Art Barn displaying and selling items, and we have other display space too if you're interested in some promotional items down here, or even selling anything on consignment. So we don't take any fee for it. It's just a benefit of membership. So with that said, thank you to everyone who's joined us. We should have about 40 participants on the call today. Wonderful group. Everybody is very interested in dominating the Google search page, which is our focus today. Thank you so much to Jim Lowe for this presentation. This is our second partnership with Jim. He is a wonderful member of ours. We're very appreciative of that. So Jim brings over 20 years of experience in marketing, brand management, social media management, and content creation. He's got a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of experience behind him. So thank you again, Jim, for doing this presentation. You really have become a resource for us, and we're very grateful for that. So for those of you on the call today that aren't members, I hope you don't mind, but we will be reaching out following the call with some information about being a member of the Southern Georgian Bay Chamber of Commerce. This workshop today is just an example of one of the benefits. Of course, there's no cost to it. It is a benefit of membership, and we will be reaching out via email and letting you know about everything we're doing down here and the promotional opportunities. We represent over 400 members throughout Midland, Penetanguishene, Tay, and Tiny Township, and that number is increasing every day. So we will be chatting with you after. So following this presentation, there'll be time for questions and answers. If you don't want to, well, actually, I think your only option at this point would be to type out your questions, and we will make sure that they're answered. So the webinar will be recorded, and we'll make it available following today. So Jim, I think that is it for us, and thank you again, and we're going to hand it over to you at this point.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Kathy. And I just want to give a shout out to the Southern Georgian Bay Chamber of Commerce. We love being members. We're happy to give back by doing webinars like this. But you know, the ability to connect with other entrepreneurs in the community is huge. They provide all kinds of support programs as well. It's a great investment for your business. So if you're not a member, make sure you talk to Kathy, and I know she'll be reaching out, because it's a tremendous investment in building your business in the community. I do want to just mention one thing in particular, just so that there isn't any confusion. We're going to be talking today about Google My Business and really dominating the Google My Business landscape. Although, as we'll talk about, there are definite benefits, huge benefits in terms of search. This isn't about SEO, search engine optimization, and there are a lot of amazing companies out there who can help you with SEO. We're going to be focusing on what is an amazing free tool that every small business owner should be utilizing to improve their search rankings, but more importantly, how customers interact with you in search. So just want to clarify that if you're looking for SEO advice, I'm not the guy that's going to provide it. That's a whole other bit of wizardry that I leave to the experts. But Google My Business, and don't worry if you're not sure the difference, we're going to cover that. But Google My Business is the focus for today. So You'll see behind me the logo for Google My Business, and we'll get into a bit more about what it is. But the big thing is, why is this important to you? And over the past few years, Google has been deprioritizing organic search results. So that's when you type in social media companies or business networks or restaurants near me into the search engine. They've been deprioritizing organic search results in favor of ads, and we'll take a look at how those appear, and no-click searches. What a no-click search is a search that is fully contained within Google. So if Kathy goes into Google and does a search for a company, she gets all the information she needs from that Google result and doesn't actually go to anyone's website. And that's a big change in terms of how search works. In the past, you did a search, the links came up, and you went to that company's website. Now, if we're searching for the weather, we don't generally click through to the Weather Network web page. We see the results right in the Google search engines. If we're looking for when a TV show debuts or movie times, again, that shows up right in Google. Google is doing everything it can to try to keep users in Google and not on websites. Now, the advantage or the way that you can respond to that is with a Google My Business listing that allows you to be part of no-click searches. Doesn't mean you're going to get rid of your website. Your website is still an incredibly important tool, but Google My Business is essential. So a couple of important notes about searches before we look at Google My Business. 46% of all Google searches have a local intent. That is a huge market for your business that you need to tap in on, and you need to be aware of what they're seeing when they search for you or for your products and services. 93% of local searches now feature Google My Business listings. Not all of those are verified. We're going to talk about verification moving on. But if you're the 7% that's not appearing, you are missing out on significant business. Biggest number on this, or most important number on this slide, 68% of people contact a business directly from the search results. So if your Google My Business listing is not accurate, if the phone number is not there, or if it has an old web page address, you are going to miss out on connecting with customers. A key element, as we'll see, of Google My Business are reviews. 88% of people trust online reviews as much as personal recommendations. So many of us in business have relied on personal recommendations, quote unquote, word of mouth for years to build our business. That's changing, especially with millennial and Zoomer consumers. Online reviews from strangers hold the same value or more as the recommendations that they're getting from friends and family. If you do not have a Google My Business listing, or you're not monitoring it to make sure that those reviews are coming in and are positive, that is going to impact the decisions that people make about doing business with you. So a little bit of background, and Nora, if this was live, I'd ask people to put up their hands, but how many people remember something called Google Plus? I'm going to imagine that half of you, or less than half, have your hands up. Google Plus was Google's first attempt to create a social media platform. Essentially, you had two ways of approaching business, either search through Google or social media listings through Facebook. Google decided that they wanted to compete with Facebook business pages and created Google Plus, which, unlike many of Google's initiatives, was a total disaster. Most of you probably don't remember Google Plus because it was a failure. They abandoned it a few years ago and introduced Google My Business instead. They decided to drop the social media aspects of it from a consumer standpoint and really focus on the business offerings. So what could Google do to compete with Facebook business pages? Over those few years, since they shifted gears to Google My Business, it's become an essential part of any small business's strategy. So a Google My Business listing is critical in terms of geography on your search results. So if you look on the far left, you'll see your basic search results coming up, including paid ads. If you do not have a Google My Business listing, the right side of this screen comes up blank. Instead, because the Mortgage Center Midland has a verified and active listing, suddenly you are dominating those search results. The paid ads on the left, which are just links, as well as the organic search results, all pale in comparison to the geography that Google is giving you in the desktop search results. So like just imagine, you know, if you don't have a Google My Business listing, that entire right-hand section is blank. If you're a consumer doing a search, what's going to appeal to you more? Text-based links on the left-hand side or a visual interactive listing on the right-hand side of the screen? It's tremendously important. It's even more important on mobile, because on mobile, when a user does a search, your Google My Business listing comes up first. So what do you want people to find when they look for you? Some text-based links, perhaps to ads to your competitors, or actual details with your website, directions, reviews, and images that you've put into your Google My Business listing? I think the answer is pretty clear. You want to own that real estate in search. The other key thing is that it ties into Google Maps search results. So this is a search for social media companies in Midland. You'll see that Assisting You Social comes up first, which is great, but critically, our number of reviews is there, information that we've provided is there. Suddenly, they're not just getting an address, they're not just getting a search result, they are getting marketing results that you have created. So it's very important to be able to pop out on Google Maps. This only happens with a Google My Business listing. You can see, you know, obviously in digital marketing, most firms, you know, are aware of the value of Google My Business. When and you're certainly not at all disrespecting this company, but you can see there is one result here that does not have a Google My Business listing, and the lack of hook for a potential customer is significant. If you're doing a search on Maps and you have these 5 companies that have reviews, links, information, and one that doesn't, where are you going to click? Where are you going to go? You're going to go with one of those companies with the Google My Business listing. Those listings can then expand into far more detailed and attractive information. So again, here we're looking at our Midland office, doing a direct search in Maps for Assisting You Social Midland. Look at the detail that comes up on the far side of the screen in terms of our listing. We've got photos. That was actually our grand opening of the Midland office from a couple of years ago. People can get information on hours, our phone numbers there, directions. You'll notice, and this wasn't planned, but there's information about today's webinar, because you can post updates and events to Google My Business, and we're going to talk about the importance of that. So all of a sudden, people are getting really a 3-dimensional view of your listing. You can go even further, especially if you have a physical location that lots of people visit, so a restaurant, store, dance studio, etc. You can create interactive Google tours of your facility, and people can walk right through them. That's obviously changed a little bit in the COVID era, but it's one more advantage to market yourself in the search and map environment. The Google My Business listing also plays into what we refer to as the local pack. So I'm sure anyone who's done a search on Google before has seen this happen. You get a group of businesses that meet those search terms showing on a map. You only appear in the local pack at this point if you have a Google My Business listing. So if you haven't verified that listing and it doesn't exist, no matter how good your SEO is, you are not going to appear in local pack. Okay. So again, those 3 screens that we've just looked at are the biggest way to get yourself visible without having to spend a lot of money on paid ads or search, and that is Google My Business. So I've shown you the visibility that comes from Google My Business, but what can you actually do on it? Well, number one, as you saw with our post about today's webinar, you can put posts up. It's just like your Facebook business page. You're not going to have the same level of engagement that you have on a Facebook business page, but that's because consumers react to it differently. But certainly information, ads, etc., about what you do and why you do it play a great role on Google My Business, and it's a feature which the majority of businesses still don't take advantage of. If you have a Google My Business listing, please post regularly, once a week minimum. People can ask questions. This sometimes scares business owners because people will ask questions and anyone can answer those questions. Don't be afraid of it. People are asking those questions anyway. In this case, you're able to respond directly. You're able to see responses, and you can correct misinformation that might be out there. If people are asking about you in other forums and not getting your response, they're more likely to get misinformation. So it's a key feature. It is a little scarier feature for business owners because, as I said, anyone can answer them, but it's an important way to engage people and tell them more about your business. Customers can also message you directly, and we're going to talk about that a little further on, but they can ask you private questions. They can make bookings, including booking appointments. So that messaging feature you have to activate as a listing owner. It's very important, especially when you're dealing with millennial customers. They want to get their answers right away, and the way to do that is through Google My Business. You can have individual product listings. So if you are in the retail business and you have set products or services, if you're a massage therapist or a chiropodist, all of these things can be listed as products which people can find. And if you have an e-commerce interface, they can actually directly link to that. So if a person sees your new painting in your Google My Business listing, they can click through to purchase that. Booking appointments, Google My Business integrates with a lot of appointment scheduling software. It can also directly link to a scheduling site on your own website. It's a great way to let people do business with you. We have a chiropodist client in Barrie who now regularly gets appointments booked through Google My Business, just because that's it. People do a search, they find it, and they love the convenience of being able to book right away, and it integrates with their booking software. Events. This is a great way to help with SEO by listing events. So if you're having an open house, a webinar like this, even just a sale, 2-for-1 coffees on Thursday, listing those events in your Google My Business listing pulls you up in search results, but it also gives people a greater reason to do business with you and to check you out. So we're going to dive into one of the listings that we looked at earlier, just so we can have a better look of how things appear. So this is from a mobile view of Google My Business listing. You see very quickly images that you are creating appear there. Now, Google can be very funny with images, and it will actually change which image displays based on the search criteria, based on the actual individual Google users. So one of the most common questions we get from people is, how do I change the photos that appear in my Google My Business listing? And the answer is, you can't always, but sometimes you can. So it's not a simple response. Certainly photos that you have uploaded as the business owner can be deleted, and that's one way of doing it. Photos that users have uploaded, you generally can't delete them, but you can flag them if they're inaccurate or inappropriate. So, for example, we had some photos in our business listing that were of an old location. It was no longer relevant, but they weren't put up by us, so we couldn't delete them, but we were able to flag them through Google, and they were eventually removed. But looking at the listing, very important things. Number one, you have the reviews. and reviews are so critical to small business success these days. The more, the better. Consumers put great faith in companies that have a lot of positive reviews. So being able to see 27 people have provided 5-star reviews says a lot to me. People can then click through and read those reviews, see what your consumers actually thought of you. On mobile, this is a direct call button, so all they have to do is hit that to be in touch with you. Directions will take them right into Google Maps. They can save your listing for future reference, and they can go to your website. The Google My Business app, which we'll talk about, tracks all of those things. So you can, on a monthly basis, look at how many people called you because of your Google My Business listing, how many people went to your website, how many people asked for directions. Your hours are listed here for clients to know, when they cannot get there. This is another critical integration with Google Maps. So if I ask for directions to the Chamber of Commerce, and it's 4:45 and the chamber closes at 5 p.m. and I'm a half an hour away, it will actually tell me the chamber may not be open when you arrive. Well, this is obviously important because you don't want people showing up and being frustrated at your door because you're not open. So it's another little bit of integration that occurs only if you've filled out all the details in your listing. You can see in this case, the make appointment link goes directly to another website. The phone number is in detail there if I'm not clicking through. Another thing that scares some business owners is that users can suggest edits. This doesn't happen as often as you think it would, but it can sometimes be. It happened a lot during the early days of COVID. Users were updating listings where the business owners perhaps hadn't indicated they were closed or had limited hours, etc. In general, it's not something that's subject to a lot of abuse or trolling. Google is very careful with accepting user edits, and you get notified, which again is why it's very important to be checking your listing regularly or have the app so that you're getting notifications on your phone. And then, of course, we talked about photos. My phone actually just thought I was trying to talk to Google My Business, so I apologize for getting distracted there. It just started answering me. So we talked a little bit about appointments. On the left, you can see an example of Google's default appointment form. So if I click through that I would like to make an appointment and you do not have appointment software, you can have an automated message that's going to respond to people and get you that information right away. You can also request quotes, or you can turn on your listing so that people can request quotes. So again, this is a very basic form. Some businesses can get very complex, but we simply ask the visitor to indicate what service they're after, when, and then include a contact phone number if they want. Both of these forms are automatically tied to the user's Google email address. So if the person does not have a Google account, it won't work exactly the same way. It will still work, but as with most Google services, it's optimized based on the user having some sort of Google account. So I know some of you have been looking at all of this and thinking, oh my goodness, I don't even know if I have a Google My Business listing, or I think it's there, but I've never done anything with it. The single most important thing to take away from today is that you need to claim your listing. If you haven't done so, it's very simple. And I'm not here to advertise. This is a service that we provide, but it's also something that business owners can do on their own. It does take a little bit of time, but here's how you do it. You go to google.com/business. You're going to log in. You do need a Google account. So if you don't have one, you'll have to set one up. But there's no way around that. Some of you may have Google accounts and not even realize it. Generally, if you have an Android phone or a YouTube account, sometimes even your company emails have been set up in G Suite, and those count as Google accounts. But you have to have one. Otherwise, you will not be able to properly manage that listing. Once you've logged in, you're going to do a search. At this point, most businesses do have a listing, even if it hasn't been verified. So you're going to do a search, you're going to type in your business name, it may ask you for a bit of an address, and it's going to look to see if a listing is there. It'll ask you, it'll say, you know, is this your company? You're going to say yes or no. It's going to ask you for various details. And then the critical step is that there is a verification process. There's a really good reason for this. When Google My Business first started, there wasn't a verification process. So there were actually scammers, and this happened primarily in big cities, but we even saw it in Midland and Barrie. Scammers would claim a company's Google My Business listing and basically hold it for ransom. So Google took some very good and solid security steps. In most cases, Google is going to require your business to verify through the mail. So what happens there is you provide a mailing address, typically one that appears on your website, but that's not mandatory. And it will mail a postcard to you with a 6-digit code, comes in about 2 weeks, and then you go back into the listing and enter that, and you'll be verified. Sometimes, if you're really lucky and Google has rated, really sort of pre-authorized your website, you can get it by phone or by email, but Google has to have determined that the email address and the phone number are valid, have been used by users, and you know, there's a whole bunch of criteria that Google doesn't share. But I would say, you know, out of every 10 Google My Business listings that we set up for clients, maybe 2 to 3 we're able to verify through email or phone, which speeds up the process considerably. Do not take it personally if Google expects you to verify by mail. That is the standard process, and you know, it shouldn't surprise you. So best practices, and we'll walk through these, and I imagine some of your questions will be around these. Most importantly, add images. Google My Business listings with more images get far more, apologize for that. I thought I had the phone on mute. Google My Business listings with photos get up to 600 times the engagement than those that simply have the default map image. The cover image, that should be something that meets Google's specifications, which, you know, I can email to anybody, or you can easily get that online. It should be something that represents your business. Including your logo is important, but simply using your logo as a cover page is a lost opportunity. Find an image that really says what you do. Download the app. And I know, you know, people hate, you know, having too many apps on their phones and getting lots of notifications, but this is what you do. This is how you make your living, and being able to get those immediate alerts when someone leaves a review, someone wants to book an appointment, someone leaves a message. That is so important. It's a very user-friendly app. It gives you alerts. It also gives you access into data. And the data that you can pull out through the Google My Business app is so valuable as a business owner. You know, being able to look at what times people are visiting your app, or visiting your listing, where they're coming from, what they're searching to get there. All of that is insight that can help you shape content, but also how you deal with clients. So, you know, the app is available both on iPhones and Android systems. So worth your time, and you should download it. If you haven't done so, do it. If you haven't set up your listing, it should be the second thing you do after you set up your listing. Almost always respond to reviews. So my previous session for the Chamber was actually talking about reviews, particularly negative reviews. Even if someone just leaves 5 stars or 3 stars or 4 stars, but it's a review, take the time to thank them. It shows that you are active in the listing, and it shows you care about the customer experience. It also helps with your placement because Google says you are a business owner who is engaged in the listing and your business. So you get rewarded by Google if you are responding to those reviews. Sometimes it's simple, we have a restaurant client where, people will occasionally just do 3 stars or 4 stars with no real explanation because, people have different expectations and standards. We always reply, thank you so much for the review. We can't wait to turn your next experience into a 5-star visit. It's a simple thing, but it shows that you care as an owner, and it encourages other people to leave reviews. The reason why I've put almost, and responding to negative reviews is also very important, but you want to do so in a professional and service-based way, not taking offense and trying to argue with the person. The one time I would not respond to reviews is if they are an attempt to undermine your business, slanderous, fraudulent, etc. In that case, you need to flag it to Google. Google, I would say, is generally pretty good at dealing with the obviously malicious or troll type of reviews, but you don't want to engage that type of review. You want to flag it. You should never flag a negative review that's honest and legitimate. Never do that. Google will look at you as being an organization that is just trying to censor the discussion, which is the opposite of what Google wants. And they'll take, when it almost becomes the boy who cried wolf type of thing. If you are flagging reviews just because they are negative, Google will not take you as seriously when you flag a review that's actually malicious, slanderous, etc. So please be very cautious with using that flag feature. If it's negative but legitimate and reasonably fair, respond to it. Don't flag it. But if someone says, they stole my money, they're criminals or something like that, clearly that's something that's not appropriate, and Google will deal with that if you flag it. One of the features in your listing is to add a short name. So that's similar to a Facebook page short name. It might be AYS Midland, AYS Barrie, SGGBCC. This is really important, and I don't see this written a lot in articles about Google My Business. But if your listing doesn't have a short name, people can't actually follow or save your listing. So although I don't think anyone kind of cares what your short name is, if you don't activate that, your big fans can't follow you. That's not super important for a company like Assisting You Social, but if you are a theater that has live events, or a restaurant that has specials, etc., you want people following so that they're getting updates about your listing and able to easily get information. So make sure you add the short name. We talked earlier about direct messages. That's actually a feature you have to turn on. If you do not turn that on, people can't send you messages through the listing or through the app. So make sure that you've turned that on, because people want it to be easy. Unfortunately, technology has made us all very lazy, and we want things right now, and we want it with minimal effort. And if someone has to click through to go to your website to fill out a contact form, there's a chance they're just going to move on to your competitor. So allowing them to send you a message directly through your Google My Business listing is a key feature to turn on. Finally, regularly post updates, offers, and events. Updates, as I said earlier, are just like what you'd put on your Facebook business page or your Instagram, your Twitter, your LinkedIn. They can be ads, they can be soft features about your organization. Ultimately, it's a way to engage people. Offers are exactly as they sound. You can put on limited offers, 25% off if you mention Google My Business, or Thursdays are 2 for 1, etc. You need to honor those offers, obviously. You need to make sure you're staying on top of them so that your staff are aware that they exist. But offers are a great way to get people to check out your business. And then finally, events, which we already covered. List those. That helps you significantly in SEO. So that's really the content part. It always feels strange doing Zoom webinars versus real life ones, because you don't get to see the nodding heads or whether people are sort of picking it up, have specific questions. But we've got some time here to answer your questions. I know, Kathy, there were a couple of things that you were curious about, but I'll maybe turn it back over to you, Kathy, and you can manage the questions, etc. And hopefully we can fill in some blanks that weren't covered.
Thank you so much, Jim. That was amazing. I do have a couple questions, but I see that we do have a question coming online. So, hi, Jim. My question is, our firm has 2 advisors sharing the brand. Is it confusing, or can it be beneficial for each advisor to have a Google My Business listing as well as the firm's
So
listing?
that's a great question. I love that question. Unfortunately, the answer is it depends. So what I would consider before making that decision is, how are people looking for either the 2 advisors or the firm? If your marketing is very much personality based, so I'll assume, because this is anonymous, let's say that you're a mortgage brokerage and you have 2 mortgage brokers working in the organization. If through personal networking, bus stop ads, etc., if it's built around the individual personalities, I would absolutely have a separate listing. Now, Google can sometimes be tricky if you don't have different websites. It's not a problem to have multiple listings at the same address, so you don't need to be concerned about that. In general, you should be able to get the second listing set up. But again, it needs to be consistent with your overall efforts. If you are simply focused on your overall brand, so we'll say Mortgages Are Us is the brand, and the individual brokers aren't the focus of anything, you're better to have single efforts and really focus on building up that listing. So hopefully that helps. If not, please post a follow-up question.
Thanks, Jim. And our second question coming in on the chat. If you turn on the message feature, how and where are you notified about a message? I've had messages from Facebook that I didn't see for days later, which can be disastrous. So how are they notified,
Yeah,
Jim?
fantastic question as well. So if you have the app, you should get a close to real-time alert on your phone. So it pops right up in my notifications. You do need to make sure that when you've installed the app, that your phone settings allow notifications from the Google My Business app. To me, that's the easiest way. You can get email-based alerts of questions, but anytime you're dealing with email, there's a potential for delay. There's a potential for it to get buried in other emails. So I'm not a big fan of that option, but it is there for those who you do not want to use the app or just aren't comfortable that way. But by far, getting the real-time notifications on your phone's notification screen is the best way to deal with that.
Thank you, Jim. I would be very curious to know of the participants that are on the call, how many actually do and don't have a Google listing to the caliber that you're talking about. So, we have a question here from Fran, but if you don't have a Google listing, maybe you could chat us. Also, if you have a question, please send it through the chat. I'm sure other people are probably thinking something along the same lines, so please send us the questions just in the chat box. So Fran,
She's putting her hand up back to her listing.
Oh, Fran has a listing. Thank you, Fran. So I have a couple questions, Jim, if I can jump in here. One of your first slides said that 46% of all Google searches have a local intent. Can you just tell me what that means?
Yeah, so, and then we do it in chat. We have a question from Krista, which
okay, perfect.
Yeah, so local intent means that the person doing the search is looking for a local solution. So, the most common examples are restaurants, movies, etc. The flip side would be someone who is looking for, who's the Prime Minister of Canada, or who won the Stanley Cup in 1967. But a local search is a search being conducted for a business or service in the immediate area that the search party intends to use.
Okay, thank you so much. Makes sense for sure. So back to Krista. Can you talk about frequency of posts and how this impacts your listing? Also, any idea what booking engines integrate with Google best to allow direct booking from the Google listing? That's a great question.
First question, this is something that Google keeps fairly close to their vests, and there's speculation as to what the best fit is. You absolutely want to do it at least weekly, because Google deprioritizes any post that's over 7 days old. So at the bare minimum, a weekly update will ensure that you've got a fresh, excuse me, it will ensure that you've got a fresh posting that appears in those various images that we saw. So for example, I'm just going to flip back a couple of slides. So if you look to the far side of the screen with the ad for today's webinar, that will not appear there when it becomes more than 7 days old. So you don't want that to happen, because that's a loss of opportunity. This is basically like a billboard when you're driving down the road, except it's immediately relevant to what the person was searching for. So don't let that happen to your listing. In terms of frequency beyond that, my typical advice is don't do more than one a day, because you're going to bury your people aren't going to search through a ton of posts on Google My Business. It's not like they have a news feed on Facebook, so you do not want to bury important updates. The critical part, though, is it needs to be relevant. If you're just posting every single day or 2 or 3 times a day a whole bunch of soft branding posts, it's not going to have the same impact as a single post a day or 2 to 3 a week that really emphasize what people are going to be looking for when they're either searching for you or for the services and products that you provide. So minimum 1, ideally 2 to 3. If you're getting more than that, it really needs to be very, very relevant. So just one more thing on that item. If you are a company that things change day to day, so I'll use a cafe as an example. If you have a different featured coffee every day of the week, well, I say go for it. Have a posting. Today we're doing vanilla lattes, and tomorrow it's going to be iced coffees. Perfect. That's very relevant. And when people do a search and they see that, there's a post about the Friday drink of the day. Awesome. But if you're an insurance advisor and things don't really change from day to day, daily updates are just overkill. So the second part of your question, it's a little more complex, and I don't want to specifically endorse any particular booking tool, because it also depends on the industry. What a massage therapist would use is different than what a restaurant would use for reservations. My advice to you, if you're already using a booking engine, is ask them about their integration with Google My Business. If they do not provide it, you can do a quick search, or you can email me, and I'm happy to steer you in the right direction. But there are so many, I wouldn't want to cite a specific one.
Thanks very much, Jim. And while we're on this page, the fact that our workshop is on your Google listing, did you actually upload it as an event, or is it pulling it from some other social media site? Or
we've uploaded that. Google,
okay.
They're frustratingly inconsistent in terms of what they pull into a listing. So I always encourage companies to be proactive, and that's like the great strength of Google My Business is Google will prioritize information provided by the owner versus what it's pulling in. So yes, you will see, particularly in, so particularly when you look at the desktop listing results, you'll see a lot more things pulled in via third party. But why take that chance? The few moments that it takes you or your social media team to upload that information to the listing is worth it, because it's your framing of the event, it's your marketing material, and it's your links. So you're not taking any chances.
Thank you. Perfect. And Fran also has an additional question. Can you post videos? And I'd also like to ask whether adding 3D photos, if there's any benefit to that. So back to Fran's question first about videos.
Yeah, video is great. I'm a big proponent of video across all platforms. When we look, just stepping aside from Google My Business, I know when we run paid video ads on Facebook, we're getting a click-through rate at 1/10 of the cost of image ads. So video is king in every platform. It's very valuable in terms of Google My Business. The challenge is sometimes if you're using a third-party posting tool to go into Google My Business, you may not be able to post video directly through a tool. You can post video through the app or going directly in your web browser to Google My Business. They have to be short. You can't put, as of the moment, you can't do like 7-minute videos on Google My Business. So they should be very crisp and to the point. One option, if you have a longer video, is to take a very attractive screen cap and then provide a link to your YouTube account or your Facebook video or whatever. But yeah, if you've got a really sharp 30 to 45-second video, by all means, integrate that into your posts on Google My Business. So when just before we get to any other questions in chat, I noticed Wendy has a new company with no storefront, and that's actually now I'm kicking myself because that's the one thing I didn't cover in the material. So Wendy, thank you so much for asking about that, because a common question we get is from people who either have home-based businesses or virtual businesses is, can they have a Google My Business listing? Will it get verified? And critically, will it expose their home address? So yes, you can. Yes, it will get verified. And although you need to provide a mailing address, you do not have to display that in your Google My Business listing. So when you're going through the setup, we were talking about that. Here, I'll just quickly change screens. So when we were talking about verifying your listing, when you're filling out the details, one of the questions that Google My Business asks you is, do you serve customers from this location? And you answer yes or no. If you say no, you have the option of hiding your address in the listing and simply providing a geographic area that you serve. Even if you serve across the country, I still encourage you to pick a slightly more narrow geography that you serve. The reason being, Google My Business focuses on local search. So if you go coast to coast, you're not really going to be fit. Your Google My Business listing isn't going to come up in those local packs or in Google Maps. So it's one of those things. If you're already a really big, successful national company, you don't need to worry about that. But if you're starting out, let's say you're doing drop shipments of things that you're your liquidation business, you don't have a storefront, but you deliver everywhere, I'd focus on having Simcoe County or Central Ontario as the area you serve. But it is very important, if you're working from your home and you don't want your privacy exposed, that you indicate that when you fill out the details. Because often we'll sit down with a company and we'll take a look at their Google My Business listing and we'll see that person's front lawn. And that's usually fine until it isn't. And sometimes through either a mistake they've made or something that's no fault of their own, a business gets targeted on social media. And if the owner's home address is there in the Google My Business listing, that can create serious privacy concerns. So please make sure that you carefully fill out the details. And if it's a home-based business with no storefront like Wendy's, indicate that when you set it up so that people aren't looking at your front porch.
Perfect, Jim. Just to verify as well, everything we're speaking about today is free, correct, to businesses?
Yes.
Is there, so the listing itself, downloading the app, uploading video, photos, whatever we're uploading, everything is free to businesses or members?
Yes. Yeah. So the listing, the app, all the features that we have talked about, the exception being the booking it. So I'll come to that in a sec with the booking engines, but all of these features on this page, those are all free. Okay. In terms of booking appointments, if you're using a third-party tool to book reservations, appointments, etc., there will likely be costs associated with that tool. There are other tools that integrate with Google My Business that would have a cost. There are companies like Assisting You Social that, you know, because we are taking the time to set up a listing, we charge for our time on the listing, but the listing itself from Google is free. And the reason why I want to differentiate that is sometimes business owners will get a phone call from a scammer saying, you know, you need to pay to keep your Google My Business listing active. Or, you know, I'm calling from Google, and they're not. And there's a problem with your listing. You're going to have to start paying, or it's going to be deleted. That is scam. Hang up on that person. Google will not contact you for those reasons or for payment. You know, Google does want you to spend money on paid search. You'll see within your listing that there are options to do paid ads, but it's clearly and explicitly stated as a paid ad campaign. There is no cost for Google My Business, and anyone who tries to tell you that there is a cost is trying to take advantage of you. It's completely legitimate, though, if you're hiring someone who's going to take the time to do all of this for you, to charge for their time. But that's definitely different from someone saying, well, it costs X amount of money to have a Google My Business listing. So please don't fall for that.
Perfect. And not to divulge any trade secrets, Jim, but you were searching, one of your screens showed a search for social media businesses in our region. And of course you came to the top of the page there. So any suggestions, advice on businesses getting that kind of exposure, being the top of the page?
So, like, first of all, I want to give a shout that Midland and Southern Georgia Bay in general has some amazing digital marketing teams. And you know, whether it's Collaborative House or Willow Graphics, Shop Midland, you know, I can't say enough about those firms and what they do for businesses. And you can see, like, you know, their three firms as well as ours, nothing but perfect reviews, because, you know, they go the extra mile for their clients. So although I'm very pleased that we're at the top of the list, you know, these are very good companies, and you won't go wrong doing business with them. I can't get too much into you know, the strategies to get to the top, because it's a variety of things, but following the best practices that I outlined in the presentation will definitely help. The biggest, you know, sort of non-secret parts of it is having a detailed listing. So fill out everything possible about your company. Regular updates are a big part of it. Ultimately, though, the interaction that consumers have with the listing factors in, and that's something that you know, having engaging and relevant content is important for. If people don't leave reviews, if they don't click on the updates, if they're not asking for directions, if they're not calling, Google says this listing isn't relevant to people on those search terms, and they deprioritize you. So, you know, the reason why these companies are all at the top of the list is because when someone has done a search for social media marketing in Midland, they've had success dealing with these companies, whether it's a returned phone call, a lengthy website visit. It's been relevant, and relevance is key to Google's success.
Thanks, Jim. Any other questions? I think that was the end of my questions. This has been so valuable, and it's actually incredible that this service is free of charge. We don't see that too often, as well as being so powerful. So we're just definitely going to push that message out that businesses should be doing this. And again, we're recording this presentation, and we will make it available by social media and on our website later today or tomorrow. And for anybody on the call that is not a member of the Chamber of Commerce, again, we will be in touch to tell you everything we're doing here. For the people on the call that are members, we appreciate sincerely your membership, and we are doing everything we can to show value, so you will continue to be a member of ours. Jim, that was amazing, and unless there's any other questions, I don't see any at this point. I don't think. So, Jim, thank you so much. This was so valuable to all businesses across the board. Really appreciate your partnership and for offering this kind of advice to members.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for organizing this, for all the work that the Chamber does. Now, I gave a shout out to some other great digital marketing companies. I'll just give a shout out to us. If you decided that you want to Google My Business listing, but you don't have the time or interest or ability to set it up and critically manage it with ongoing content, check us out, assistingyou.social. We would love to work with you and help build your brand and connect you to customers.
Thanks so much, Jim. Awesome advice. Great presentation. Thank you to everyone who took the time to join us today. Stop by our office. We'd love to see you. We're a bit lonely down here some days, so stop by and see us. Catherine, welcome aboard, and everybody have a great day. Stay safe. Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Bye.